Hello everyone, welcome to another video tutorial on C++ programming. Now in our first episode, we did a general overview of C++, some little history you need to know about this particular language. We also delve into the installation of your IDE that you'll be using for this particular project. And the last thing we did was we spoke about the basic and general overview of a C++ program. Now in today's video, we are going to be talking about the processes involved in executing or working on a C++ project and everything you need to know about it. Secondly, we are going to be talking about data types. Now data types are very essential. Anytime you talk about programming, you have to know that data types come into play in a very critical and crucial way, because every programming language has its own data types, and C++ also has its own data types that makes it unique. Most programming languages have similar data types. We'll talk about the basic structure and everything that has to do with a C++ program. Not just the structure, but the processes involved in executing a C++ program. Now, let's do this. Now, my people, listen, I have a very good deal for you. Now, if you want to learn C++ and follow it in a systematic way, in an orderly manner, so that you, advance in your programming lessons, not just C++, any programming language at all of your choice, I always highly recommend W3 Schools. You see, I've been talking about this particular website for learning coding, and people don't really get to know why. People barely listen to me. But I'm telling the truth, if you want to be really serious about learning programming, I highly recommend W3 Schools. When I'm free, I use it. When I'm in the car, I can access it. Wherever I'm going, so far as I'm free and I have something to do with coding, I'm always on my phone or my laptop learning it from there. Now, this is the website, and it's here. It just tells you and teaches you how to code. Someone will argue with me that we have a code academy and all that, but I highly feel, and I know that this one is really the best. If we click on C++ for now, it's going to list all our elements, the content that we are going to be taking off from this particular course. Now, forget the ads, focus over here, and you can have the try for yourself option over here to take you to an online debugger or an online compiler, and it's going to, you can write your code and execute for me, and it's going to work very well for you. You have so many when it comes to each of these lessons you see over here. Now, I've been taking so many lessons here. I've taken C++, I've taken HTML, CSS, I'm even taking Kotlin, which is on this aspect of, we even have cybersecurity over here. If you really want to be serious about this programming, then let's be serious here. Take W3 Schools. Now, this is not a sponsored video, but I want to really put it out there because it has helped me in so many ways, and I think it's going to help you as well. Well, if you want to take it, it's up to you. If you don't want to take it, you can leave it. Now, when it comes to C++, there are some basic steps involved when it comes to making or executing or creating a C++ program. Now, right from the idea you have, now let's put it into practice. So number one is basically your blueprint, and the blueprint is your idea, and that is what you're going to put into work. So number two is the editor. Now, when it comes to the editor, it's basically the IDE you are going to be using for this particular project. Now, there are some particular languages that, in fact, you can use Notepad, you can use Visual Studio, you can use Code Blocks, you can use whatever IDE you want. In our video today, I'm going to be using Visual Studio for this, and we'll later execute our program to see whatever we get in the course of today's video. Now, number three, we have the preprocessor. Now, the preprocessor in C++ is the first line you see when you're about to start everything with respect to your C++ program. The first code you see is the hashtag include IOStream. Now, this is our preprocessor. IOStream is basically our input and output stream that is going to help us in outputting and inputting commands in and out of our program. There's a lot more to it, but we'll talk about it as we proceed. Now, number four is our linker. Now, what the linker does is, in my best understanding, when you are writing a C++ program, there's a lot going on in the backend that you basically don't know about. So the linker is basically putting all these files together, putting all our libraries and everything involved in our project into one executable file that will be later processed by our CPU. So from the linker, we are basically going to the loader. Now, what the loader does is, it's going to put our C++ program into the RAM, and that is where the whole execution thing starts from. And finally, the execution time is our last process of the C++ program. That is where our program is going to be executed, and from there we can literally see our output of the program that we literally built. So let's take it from here. So when it comes to C++, we have different types of data types, as I mentioned earlier. Now, one of the main things that we have to know is that they are all categorized into groups. We have the integral and floating points. We have the user-defined data types. And we have the fundamental data types. We'll get into them in a bit. Now, let's take the first one. Okay, so we are now on a C++ program, and I'm going to be showing how the integer data type works. So it's simple. Before we even proceed, I'd like to let you know again that this is the basic structure of our C++ program. Even if not for anything, just keep the entire structure in mind. As time goes on, I'll be explaining what each and everything does. Once again, I'll mention it in today's video as well. So, as I said, our preprocessor, and there is the hashtag include IO stream. You put it there, and the using namespace is, and you don't forget your semicolon, which is very, very important. Now we have the hashtag include IO stream, which is our preprocessor, as I said. Then we have this one over here. Now there are two ways to output or input commands into your C++ program. I will explain that in a bit. Yes, before we get to the data types. Now this is our int main, which is basically telling us that we are going to be putting all our main functions or everything about our program in this main function. Now as time goes on, we'll get to know how functions work and how you can declare outside the main function and inside the main function. But we are going to be basically using the main function for most of the work that we're doing in today's video. So our main function has to end with the two brackets. Then now we open it with the curly brackets. The curly bracket is where everything goes in. So without the curly brackets, we are going to be getting errors. Now, before we end everything about our program, we have to have our return statement, and we are always returning 0 for whatever that we are going to be putting here. Once again, our semicolons are very important. Now, this is where our main blocks of code go. So without wasting time, let's do this. Sorry. Now we are in the main function. So the integer data type, how do we do it? It's very simple, as we do for most of the program languages. It's just the int. You put in the int over there, and the int, what do you want to integer? Now you can assign numbers to letters. So the basic one I can just show you is int x, and we equate x to, let's say, 1. Now, if you can clearly notice from my ID, I'm getting errors, and there are so many things, and there are so many indications showing that I'm getting errors. One, you can look here, my line is underlined over here in red. We have it showing over here everywhere. Now, there's one thing that is always important, and if you forget it, just that one single omission can lead you into errors, and that's your semicolon. So if you put a semicolon here, realize that we have fixed what the issue is. So now what we are seeing basically is we are saying x should be equal to 1. So if x is equal to 1, then x is 1. So that is our integer. Now we can try 70, for instance, and we are still right. Now if you go ahead to output it, now once again, don't forget cout is for your output. So let's just cout x and see what happens. And so what is being displayed here is 70 as we executed, and that's our execution time over there. Your execution time may vary. Maybe your first time executing may take a long time because you are now building and executing. So maybe after executing for the first time, the rest might be even in less time. As it all depends on your processor and the RAM your PC is basically handling. Okay, so that's it. Now I wanted to say something when it comes to using namespaces. So if we take out the namespace from our header file and we come here, always, if that is missing, that means you can't output. Your C++ won't understand what cout is. Cout is being picked from the namespace library. So if your namespace library is taken out of your code, then your C++ program doesn't know what cout is saying. You can also say cin. Cin is to input to the console. It doesn't understand. So to fix this issue, some people basically don't use the namespace library when they are declaring their header files. So there's a different way to do it, and they do it by using the std, then the double colon, then we can put in the C out over here. Now if you do it, it's correct. Now what I can say about this is sometimes confliction comes in when you're using the entire using namespace library, and there are some particular data types or functions in the C++ program that may not execute well. It has a whole lot to do with it. I can't really explain for now, but I think as time goes on, we'll get to know why the std library can work this way or by declaring it here. So we'll put an using namespace std back, and from there we take out this. Now we have something we call declaration and we have something we call initialization. Now initialization is different. You want to start something, so int x. Now int x is an initialization. I want to start something, so if I want to start something, I'm going to put something there to show that I'm about to start something. I don't know if you get the concept. So int x with a colon means that I'm about to put in something that is going to correspond or work with a variable x. So as you can see, this is int x. Now if you come down here and we put in now x is equal to 3, or let's say 2, and we bring in a comma. Now we have literally included 2, or we have equated 2 to the letter x. So if we execute, it's going to still give us our 2. And another way to do it is how we did this previously. Int x equals 2. They are the same thing. So as you can see here, this is a declaration of x to be equal to 2. So know the differences. So now what we are doing here is we are going to be telling our console to input x. Now there's nothing showing here, so when it comes, I want to know, nothing will show. I just need to type. But for the user to know that, oh, we need to actually input something, we need to output to the console first that please input a number. And when we are done inputting a number, it's going to tell us our number that we inputted, and we are done with our program. So let's try that. So C out, and let's put in now to output to the console. Don't forget these two, the two double quotes. Very important. If you're using C++, it's smart enough to know that it's supposed to bring the other one. Then now we tell the user to any number. Now we can end with end line. Now to also continue, end line is basically telling you that when you are done outputting to the first line, instead of continuing, it should skip a line, skip the rest of the space and continue from the next line. So anytime you see end line in the code of C++, you are basically telling else if you don't use the end line, whatever that we do will be continuing in a straight line. I hope you get what I'm saying. To continue in a straight line, we don't want that. We want to use the next line. So that is where the end line comes in. There's another way to use the end line, and instead of using end line, I think you use this. We use the /n. Yes, so this is basically the new line feature, and it works like the end line, but we will be using the end line because we are used to that one. So that's our end line. So now let's execute this code and see what our output says. So as we are looking on the screen, we have please input any number. So I'm just going to type in 60, and now we have our process return 0, which is our execution time to be 61.508 seconds. Now, as I said, you are not going to be saying it in real time because I can't do one or two things at the same time. I'll find a way out of this whole thing. But right now, you are looking at a screenshot of our execution process and the time it took us to make this possible. So that is how to actually output and input to your computer console after you are done running or creating your program. You can try this for yourself and it's going to work well. You can also try one or two stuff and even be more creative with this. Now, one thing to know is that the integer data type has a size of 4 bytes, which is equal to 32 bits. So if we look at our C++ program over here, we have our integer data type and we have equated it to 60. So whatever we are seeing there is equal to 4 bytes. It doesn't matter, but it all tells you that it's equal to 4 bytes. Then now we have under the integer data type, we have shorts, which are the short ones typically have a size of 2 bytes, which is 16 bits. We also have the long, and with the long one, we have up to 4 or 8 bytes, which is equal to 32 or 64 bits. We also have the long, and those ones have a typical size of 8 bytes. Now, under the integer, we have something we call signed and unsigned data type. So signed integers can represent both positive and negative numbers, including 0, while unsigned numbers can only represent non-negative numbers. Yes. So what we can literally draw from this is that when it comes to signed integers, they are representing both positive and negative numbers, including 0. But with unsigned integers, we can only represent non-negative numbers, and that's the difference between signed and unsigned. So if you see this anywhere, this is a little explanation I can say about it. Okay, so what you are literally looking at right now, you have int temperature equals to -5. Now this is a signed integer, and we have the int score equal 100. Now this is also a signed integer. Now we want to look at unsigned integers. Now in unsigned integers, we have unsigned int item count equals 150. This is an unsigned integer. Now we also have unsigned integer, we have the file size byte equals to 2040. Now this is also an unsigned integer. So you can see the differences here. With signed integers, we can declare it as a normal integer and equate it to either a positive or negative number. But with unsigned integers, they don't deal with negative numbers, they just deal with positive numbers. And that is how they basically act. And with them, you have to state it over here as unsigned integers. Now, you may ask me, what are the advantages or disadvantages of using signed or unsigned integers? Now, they range in so many ways. It can be because of their range in values. We have the memory efficiency as part of some of the significance. Now, preventing logic errors and unexpected behaviors, which are some of the overflows we have in our systems. We can also do this to help promote clarity and intent, and also some hardware operations depend on one of these two data types to work efficiently. Now, secondly, we have our floating type and data types, and over here we have one or two few things to know about them. The float deals with decimal numbers. Now, decimal numbers in the sense that they deal with points and decimal places. So we can deal with, if you want to use a data type that has to do with maybe 3.2, 2.999, I mean, they have their lifespan and everything to do with them. So we'll break it down and talk about them. So we have our floating types here. So we have our floating points over here, as you can see on the screen. So we have the floats, and we have the temperature, and we've equated it to 23.5. So usually to declare a float data type, we have our floats, then we have our temperature. The temperature is what we are going to be equating to our number over here. So we have our data type, which is the float. We have the temperature, which is our variable name, and we have our value, which is 23.5. Now that is our float data type. Now we'll take off the F so that you don't get confused over here. I think I'll explain that as time goes on. So that is how to declare a float data type. We also have another example. You have our float, which is our data type, and we have our pi, which is our variable name, and we have equated it to this. Now this is a constant in mathematics that we can all be clear about. Now we also have what we did over here. I didn't explain it over here, but for integer, we have our integer data type, we have our variable name, and we have our value. So it's the same thing that deals for all of them, and that is something we have to keep in focus. Now we also continue with the double. Now the float also deals with the double precision floating point, which has a typical size of 8 bytes. We have their own also working for them there. We have the long, which are the extended precision floating type or floating point types. Now we have the typical size, often 8, 10, 12, or 16. And we can also continue to talk about how rarely they are used, but I mean, it all depends on you, the programmer. Now the third one we need to talk about here is the character data type. So the character data type deals with single characters, and one of the major things that we can notice about declaring the character data type is the single quotes. The single quote is very used. I mean, it's typically used when it comes to dealing with characters. So this is the character data type. We type it by using the CAR. That's the character data type. And this over here we can see is our variable name. We have named our variable. We have our variable name to be initial. Then we have our our number or our value that we have put here, and our value is supposed to be closed with a single quote. It's very important when it comes to declaring or using character data types. If you forget to bring in the single quotes, then your code is literally going to avoid execution. So we have a red underlined character or value over here, and that is showing us that there's an error there, or we are forgetting something. So now we put in our single quotes around this, and I think we are good to go. So that is our character data type. Now thirdly, we have the Boolean data type. So with the Boolean data type, you have nothing to think about. It's just true or false. It's like you're in an objective test. You just need to select true or false. And it has its own ways it's being used in programming. But you don't just use it for questions. There are particular parts of the code you'll be using along your line of programming. Data type when it comes to Booleans will have to take their place. So let's take a sample. So this is a sample. Bool is logged in. Now the bool is a data type. Instead of typing the boolean, it is shortened in this form, and this is how you type the boolean data type, and it's written this way, and it's logged in equal to true. We have the same thing here, has permission is equal to false. These are basic ways that they are used. As time goes on, we'll get to see how they are basically used and how to effectively use them in a particular program that you'll be writing. We'll get there very soon. Now, one thing to know is that Booleans are fundamentals for controlling flow in your programs, like if statements and for loops. Now, if statements will come along the line as we start using more and more of the C++, and also for looping, iteration and all that. Once again, we'll get there. Now, there's something we call the local and global declaration or initialization processes involved in C++. Now, what is a scope? So we have a scope which defines the region of a program where a variable is accessible and can be used. It determines the variable's visibility and lifetime. So when it comes to a scope, we can put it in a real life situation. A scope, a particular area or region to access something. So if you have to take the scope, for instance, of this earth we are in, we have the local, we have the global. Now I'm currently situated here in Accra, Ghana. Now this is my local scope. Once I go outside Accra, Ghana, then I'm now in a global scope. Now we can compare this to that of your country, a national or an international country. There's a whole lot that goes on here. And in C++, we have something like this. There are some particular variables or declarations that you can make inside a scope and make it outside or call for it outside the scope. With local scope, variables declared inside a function or inside a block of code have a local scope. Now, it's like within a statement, an if statement or a for loop. Now, as I said, we'll get there. Now, the visibility aspect of things, they are only accessible from the point of their declaration to the end of the block or function they are in. So that's the visibility part of you putting something or a function in a local scope. Now, the lifetime, they are created when the block or function is entered and destroyed, and also when it's exited. Now, in order not to forget, I stated once again that comments are used in C++, but we should take note that comments are not executed with our program. So if I should execute this entire lines of code that I've put over here, there's nothing going to happen to the comments. They don't execute with the program. They are just there hidden the codes for someone who wants to later access your code to understand that. So this particular line of code deals with a local to my function, or this particular code is explaining what is happening over here. Okay, so I have a simple code here. I have the void function, and I have my function name, and also I've declared our integer local variable to be 10. Now we are saying that if the local variable is greater than 5, then our message we should see should be hello. Now that's something we have here, and it's going to literally pick everything from a local scope. When it comes to the global scope, it's a different thing. So variables declared outside of any function, which is in C++, have global scope. Now they are accessible from anywhere in the program, from the points of their declaration and onwards. And they are created when the program starts and exit when the program terminates. So this is a global variable that we are declaring. If you notice, this is our main function. And our main function is telling us to see out the global counter. Now the global counter is here. It has been declared outside the main function, and declaring something outside the main function is one of the main things to let you know that we are declaring something in a global scope. And so because this is in a global scope, if you access it anywhere from the program, you will still be able to get your output. So right now we are accessing this global scope inside our main function. We are telling it to see out whatever is in here, and we have that equated to 10. So we are going to be getting 10 as our output. So that is what you are seeing here. There's nothing much to think about too much, but I think once again, as we proceed, you get to see how all these things are used in making particular programs and how they are effectively used in an everyday program. Just ignore the errors for now. I think it's because of one or two issues, and we will get over them. Now, there's one thing I need to point out. You have realized I've not spoken about the string data type. Now, there's one thing you need to know about that. Now, with C++, the string data type is not directly accessed like how we access all these data types that we literally declared in our code. But with that one, you need to include the string library, which has to do with hashtag include. Wait, hold on. Yeah, hashtag include. It's like I'm making an error here. String. So with this one, in order to access the string library, you need to have this particular preprocessor also activated in your header file. So with that one, it's something to talk about later, but I just need to throw it out there for spoiler alert. Now, as I said, let's make use of whatever we learned today so that we can call it a day. So let's write our basic code. So we are going to be integer x to 40. Or let's make this more and more interesting. So integer my age equals 20. Now we have the integer already declared. Yes. Then now we have next thing. Okay, so next thing we learned was the boolean. The boolean, how do you go about it? That's the true or false. Okay, so the age is right. False. I hope you are following me and I'm not confusing. Then I'm just trying to formulate something. Then our character, let's take it as character first initial is R. Yes. Then which other data type did we talk about? So we have done the integer, we have done the bool, we have done the character. Then also we have the float. I think I'm realizing I forgot to talk about the double as well. We have the double data type as well. The double deals with a longer version of the float. Now there's one thing we need to know about the float and the double data type. They work hand in hand, but when it comes to dealing with numbers that have lots of decimal places involved, you need a double to work with it. So the floats can take up to 5 to 7 decimal places, 5 to 6 decimal places. I think they work around that number, and I think it will take like 4 bytes, or the double will take like 15 to 16 decimal places. So just note that as we continue. So now we have our float data type. Our float data type, we won't really talk much over there, but as I said, you can take, let me see, 1 2 3 4 5 6, we end it there. And the double y, you can take as many as possible. Once we're able to go within their range, then we are good to go. But we go outside their range, we will be in trouble for that. Now you realize there's an error here. I forgot to put a single quotes with the character we declared. So let's do that, and now we are good to go. So we declared all our data types that we basically spoke about. Now let's output them to the console. Now as we have it here, if I should run this code, nothing will happen. All I would see is code executed time with this seconds, and that's all. but we want to see how the whole thing is going to work. We want to make some inputs here and there. So let's do this. So our cout, sorry. So my age is, we bring in this, the bring in this, then we'll leave a space. Whatever that is happening inside these double quotes is going to be shown in the output. So we want to leave a space before we now output this to the console. And we come here, we bring in this again, then I will bring in my age. So it's going to pick my age from here, which is our integer data type. And I will continue, then we end line. So what we basically wrote here is that it should output my age, then colon this. So if you notice what we did here, we have to output our age, which is my age, to this, and it's going to pick this from this. As you can see, as I've highlighted this, it's also highlighted over here. So that means this, and as you can see here, my age is equal to 20. I can't literally type the 20 here. If I should type the 20 here, it won't really work that way. So we have to rather put in my age. That is our variable name. We have to work with that variable name, not the variable itself. Sorry, not the value itself. So my age over here. So that the reason why I left space is so that it won't just keep it close to each other, as I said. And now we continue. So let's output this and see what we get. So as you can see on your screen, my age is equal to 20. We have it there. And now we have our space that we left over there, as you can see in the image on your screen. So we are going to be doing the same for all of them, and we see how we can take it from there. So now there's something I'd like to show you here. So you know what, let's take this out. Let's take the end line out. I want to show you something. So now we have our end line out. After running our code, let's see how it look without the end line, so that at least we get a visual representation of why I always talk about using the end line. So as you can see on your screen, we have the end line not used, and the output is saying my age is 20 ages, right? What's going on here? So that's basically the reason why we are making sure that we use the data types, the end line very well. Now to get back to what we're doing. So this is our code. We are going to be running the code, and nice one. So we have our output over here. Our code executed in 2.4 seconds. We have everything here. Now, if you realize something about the boolean, it is showing 0. Now 0 is false and true is 1. So just keep that in mind. And now we have a double data type showing us so many significant figures, a whole lot going on here, which we will not talk about now. And everything is basically showing in a right way. So I think as we proceed, we are going to be dealing with more and more, interesting codes that deal with, real situations that we face in life. I would like to do a password verification system with you, but before we treat that, we have to talk about functions, and I think from there we can take it to a next level. By the way, this has been an interesting video on the introductory part of C++. We have not yet entered, but at least we are getting somewhere. In the next video, we are going to be talking more about pointers, arrays, references, and anything interesting or anything more and more, I think, intuitive you need to add to our next lesson. Well, thanks for watching this video, and I really appreciate your time for watching this. If anything you want me to address, kindly link it in the comment section below, so that in our next video I do my possible best to make sure I do it in a better way for you to understand, in case you didn't get this one clearly. Now this, once again, is a beginner's approach to learning C++. Thanks for watching, and I'll be with you in the next one. Peace out.